Today I'm going to be sharing 5 things I wish I knew before I started playing Elden Ring. So let's start with what is the most important of these by far, and that is that every enemy has a hidden posture bar, which if you deplete this posture bar, you'll open them up to a critical strike to deal massive damage. If you've played Sekiro, you'll know all about breaking an enemy's posture, but the basic idea is that you're rewarded for maintaining consistent damage on an enemy. Light attacks will prevent the enemy's posture from restoring fully, but you'll need to employ jumping attacks, charged R2 attacks, or strong charged spells if you want to consistently break the posture of your enemies. Of course, there are other ways to break their posture as well, such as the new countering system with shields, and also the parrying system. Here's the thing, a lot of this is even possible on bosses. And yes, all the bosses have this hidden posture bar as well. A couple of minor boss spoilers coming up, so if you want to go in completely blind, go ahead and skip to this point in the video. Alright, so in the clip here, you can see me staggering the Glintstone Dragon using the Rock Sling spell, which is made more powerful by the Meteorite Staff I'm using. We'll touch more on why the Meteorite Staff makes it more powerful later in the video. It took 3 of these spells in roughly a 15 to 20 second window or so to consistently break his posture. Now, because this posture bar is hidden to the player, the only way you'll know how much damage you need is by experimenting with different attacks on various enemies. Here against Bowles the Carrion Knight, after fighting him a few times, I realized that 1 charged R2 attack and 2 R2 jumping attacks were enough to stagger him. If you do happen to have these moments in fights where you aren't able to keep hitting these heavy attacks, don't panic. You can keep the enemy's posture bar from fully recovering by hitting them with light attacks. This is where those smaller, quick items like throwing knives can really come in handy. And of course, if you're close enough, you can always throw in an R1 attack as well. Moving on to number 2, I've actually noticed a lot of newcomers to From Software games are checking out Elden Ring, which is awesome. To be honest with you, even as a Souls veteran, there have been a number of mechanics I only discovered after numerous hours of playing the game. Which takes us to number 2 on our list, and that's that you do have the ability to switch to your offhand weapon while on horseback. This one drove me crazy for a while, guys. It seems like such a simple one that I knew there had to be a way to do this in the game. Maybe it even tells you in the game and I just completely missed it. But if, like me, you've yet to figure it out, here's how it goes. By default, your right-hand weapon will be equipped when you're riding horseback. Pressing L1, however, doesn't use your left-hand weapon. Instead, it uses your right-hand weapon, but swings on the left side. Now, I'm playing as a mage right now, and I usually like running with my staff in my left hand and my sword in my right hand. Of course, you can see the problem here. Whenever I hop on my horse, I couldn't figure out a way to switch to the staff in my left hand, but this one's actually super simple. All you have to do is press the button combination for two-handing your weapon while you're on horseback. So for PS4, PS5, this is going to be triangle and R1 at the same time. Again, if you're on horseback, rather than two-handing your right-hand weapon, it will instead switch to your left-hand weapon. Now, if you're a mage like me and running the staff in your left hand, what's kind of strange about this setup is that you will have to use R1 to cast the spells when you're on horseback, which of course, if you were on foot and holding it in your left hand, you'd be using L1 to cast while you were walking around normally. So that's kind of a little quirk of the system, but it does still work, and it does keep you from having to put the staff in your right hand instead. All right, for our next tip, we're going to stick with Torrent here, because did you know there's actually 2 ways that you can dismount him? Of course, the basic way you can set to a hotkey, so you can press triangle on either one of the directional buttons on the D-pad, or you can even set him to the quick access menu on the bottom where you can just press square. Now, the thing about this system is that it's kind of slow to dismount, especially when you're in the heat of battle. And I just kept thinking there has to be a way to leap off Torrent while I'm in the middle of a battle, especially if you're wanting to go from being on horseback to fighting on foot instead. You may think you just press the jump button twice, but no. You see, Torrent has a double jump ability, so if you press your jump button twice, he's just going to simply double jump. But if you're wanting to leap off him quickly, it's actually going to be the crouch button, so L3 for console players. Now, this can really help out when you're in the heat of battle and you need to dismount quickly to try and engage some enemies on foot rather than on horseback, and even in some boss fights as well. Our next tip relates to the open world. As with most From Software games, they ask a lot of the player and put the responsibility on you to discover things about the game, either through trial and error or carefully reading item descriptions. Players can also help each other through the messaging system found throughout the game. And honestly, early in the game and even the first several hours of exploring Limgrave, you're presented with a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time. Elden Ring is a vast game, and when you first start, your map will mostly be blocked out. You probably already know you can open up more of the map by finding various map fragments, which are scattered throughout the world. They're always found at one of these little totems. Now, what you may not know is that these totems can actually appear on your your map before you've unlocked that area. Whenever you find yourself exploring uncharted territory on your map, be sure to check frequently and see if you have a little brown icon like this that shows up. And then as soon as you see that icon pop up on your map, you want to go to it, because this icon will show you the exact position of the totem, which of course has the map fragment with it. I believe when they appear on your map is tied to either proximity, so maybe if you get close to it, or how much you've explored in an area, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. So if any of you out there know exactly how that happens and when it shows up, leave a comment below to let me know. The fifth thing I wish I knew before I started Elden Ring is that some items have incredibly powerful passive abilities, and you'll only know if you read each item description carefully. Now, we already talked about how From Software and Elden Ring in particular expect a lot of their players, and this is an example of that. The Meteorite Staff I mentioned earlier in the video actually has a passive ability that boosts gravity-based sorcery, which you can see here. By the way, you'll know it's gravity-based sorcery based on the purple coloring of both the spell and its icon. Also, this Raptor's Black Feathers armor actually includes a passive ability for a 10% boost in your jump attacks. These are just a couple of these items. There are a bunch of these items like this throughout the game, so make sure you're always checking those item descriptions, because at first glance you may think, oh, this piece of armor doesn't really look that great, but then you notice it has some incredible passive ability that might make it actually worth it for your build. If you guys are curious about my first playthrough of Elden Ring, I'm posting it all on my dedicated Let's Play channel, which you can check out on the right side of your screen now. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.